Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness. This is episode 59. We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldeman Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the indigenous people with whom we share this land.
And here we are with the Let's Be Well Together podcast and What's on Your Mind with Sheila and Sammy. Hey. We are going to be talking about Lululemon and Aritzia today, and this is not an ad in any way. This is just our personal opinions on some shopping.
Our own experiences with these stores.
Yeah. Mainly, we're going to talk about clothing shopping and what we each prefer and how it works. So I was reading this article in the Financial Post, actually, and it was about Aritzia. Yeah. So I didn't know that Aritzia was a Canadian company. And the first time I went to Aritzia was with Sammy, oddly enough.
I know, that's crazy because I do not even remember this, but I love that it made this impact in your life.
Yeah, it really did.
I introduced you.
Yeah, you introduced it to me. And this article talks about the store and how well it's doing, especially considering right now a lot of retail stores are not doing well.
Right.
And they're actually expanding their space compared to a lot of stores that are making their stores smaller.
Right, yeah.
And Aritzia, they're a high fashion store for preteens, teens, and 20s. That's kind of the age that they're going for. Yeah. And it's an expensive store. So when I went in, I was a little surprised at the prices when I was with you. And you guys were telling me about these tank tops. And how amazing they are.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so I bought 2 of them.
Right.
And Sammy, you don't even remember going shopping with me.
No.
I still have these tank tops.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. I still have them and they are amazing. They've worn very well. They clean well. They, they've lasted forever and they feel nice on your skin.
Yes.
Right? So they were just so nice because I always like to have a tank top underneath a lot of my clothing that is either too short, so it doesn't quite, I don't want my midriff showing.
Right, yeah.
Or a little too low, right? I don't want cleavage showing. And so you just put a little tank underneath. So I wear them so often. I got one in black and one in white.
Yeah, I love Aritzia for that reason because they last so long. And even if, say, I don't keep it as long, I'll give it away. I'll give it away to my sister or to my mom or someone kind of when I'm done with the clothes. I'm like, okay, who else wants it? I always have my sister and mom are always like, oh, shopping day at Sammy's Closet. You know, I'm like, okay, perfect.
Shopping day.
These are your options.
Okay,
don't touch
you
this pile.
For sure. You're like, okay, you can't just have everything, anything.
Yeah, don't touch the things with tags on them, please. It's nice because then they get to wear it for however long, right?
Yeah.
And it wears really well. It's good quality. I think as long as you take care of them and wash them correctly. I love Aritzia's clothing, and I do love that it's a Canadian company.
Yeah, which I didn't know. Yeah. And there's quite a few Aritzias in Canada, but there's not a lot in the States.
No.
And the other thing that they said is that they don't advertise a lot, that it's more word of mouth. And
I wonder if that's also because of the demographic that they're reaching out towards, because, 20-somethings, teens, they're not looking at magazine ads, right? They're not looking at billboards or
commercials. What the heck are commercials?
Yeah, never, right? So it's all just on your phone. So they probably do a lot more marketing with people that they work with to wear their clothes and then to post on their social media that have a big following. It's like influencer marketing would be what it's called.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So they use that. They probably do some Facebook ads and Instagram ads, but they're reaching out to their demographic.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just realized that we're talking about environmental kind of, if we recycle and reuse and they last longer, right?
100%.
That's really great for the environment.
Yeah.
So this isn't just about social and clothing and buying Canadian.
Yeah.
The other thing that they did say in this article is when you go to Aritzia, they really try and do the neutral colors and their design and their art. They really spent a lot of money organizing all that. And their change rooms do not have mirrors in them. They have these group mirrors that you have to come out of the change room to look in the mirror. And that encourages the salesperson then to help you and to see how this looks. And I had no problem ever coming out. I mean, unless I couldn't do the dress up, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens where you're like, no, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So I've come out all the time, and they have said, oh, that's, maybe we should try this one. Like they've suggested something else instead.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I really think was helpful. And also other people around you comment.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. So, I always like that's definitely not for everybody. I know some people, and we were talking about this, I know some people that get very nervous about that there's not a mirror in their change room because they just like don't feel confident, I think, in their own skin.
Yeah.
So they don't really want to jump out before they can see it themselves. You know, they'll put their phone up, and I'm like, for me, like, I love that social aspect. Like, I love going into Aritzia because I know that the people that work there are educated on fashion, even with what they're wearing to work, right? Like they have to kind of look good and have good fashion sense. So it's like, I trust them. But I also agree that they're not going to, at least I've never really experienced this. I've never experienced them telling me you should definitely buy that, 100% buy that. And it's like $1 million, you know?
Yes. I've never felt pressure there.
No,
ever.
No, never. And even like they, like what you said, they'll offer you different things. They'll never say like, I think they're well trained to say that doesn't, to not say that doesn't look good on you, because that, will take down someone's confidence.
Yes.
So they'll definitely still hype you up, but they'll maybe offer some different things. They'll show you like what it's normally paired with, or how it can like help your body look better. Cause different body shapes, different people, different things look good on you. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they're really good at that.
Yeah. So that's what it says in the article, that they have, that personal shopper type of, but it's not really high end. Like it is expensive. I find it a little bit more expensive than like Ardeen or Gap or Old Navy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But it does have that personal. So anyways, I thought you would like to talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think, the neutral thing, I think that's important. Like, I think when you walk in, like, you don't feel anxious. Versus sometimes when you walk into those other bigger stores, like, I get anxiety because I'm like, there's just so much everywhere and it's not really organized. Aritzia does a really good job on, you walk in and there's different styles in different spots. So you walk in, you're like, here's the sweatpants, here's the dress clothes, here's the wedding outfits, here's the summer stuff, right?
They do. You're right. I totally agree with you about that. But I did also want to talk about Lululemon a little.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is also a Canadian store.
Yes.
So that's our topic of today, promoting Canadian.
Yeah.
But it took me a really long time to talk John into buying something, or even trying on something that was Lululemon.
Yeah.
I was obviously a Lululemon addict because of dance.
Yeah.
Because when you're dancing, you're stretching, you're moving, so it has to wear a certain way. And it does. Lululemon and they stand by their product.
Yes.
And it fits amazing, and it continually fits amazing. And so I wanted John to get a shirt from there, just a shirt, like just one. And now he's a Lululemon lover.
Yeah.
So it's his favorite shirt, and it took a long time, but Lululemon is another company that I really respect their product. And even though it's expensive, it is worth it.
Definitely. And I also really respect their customer service.
Yes.
Like they're great. Even I had to return some mitts for Christmas because they were just a little bit too big and they didn't have my size in there. They didn't have like the smaller ones. So, and we didn't have the tag. Like I took off the tag because I was like, yeah, these are great on Christmas Day. And then I wore them and I was like, oh, they're a little big. And they were just like, so great. They're like, yep, no problem. Like, do you want to cash back or do you want a gift card? And I was like, well, I'll just take a gift card because then I can still get something for myself from there. They asked no questions. They're like, yep, definitely. Like, whatever, it's all good. And they were busy. Like, they were busy, and they didn't even show it. Like, they were so
it's
nice.
amazing. Like, and we've bought clothes at the outlet, at the outlet mall, Lululemon, and then taken them into the retail store to get them shortened. No problem at all. Yeah, they're excellent that they do shortening for free. And it's really great.
Yeah, and it's another product that lasts so long. I have my Lulu leggings that I've had since I was a teen dancing at Confidence, right? And now, like, I'm still wearing them teaching. And I'm like, wow, like, these are great. Like, a really good product.
Yeah, because it actually, once John found out that was something I really liked, he kept buying me Lululemon. I was like, okay, you have to stop
Yeah.
because they do not die. Like I do not
Right.
need 20 pairs of Lululemon because that's too many for any one person, right? I'm like, they last forever. They're just so fabulous.
So great.
And it's not just workout clothes, right?
Yeah.
They have comfortable
Yeah.
kind of clothing that you can wear to work.
Definitely. I'm trying to get David. I'm trying to get David slowly in there. I took him in with me the other day and I was showing him around the guy stuff, and he's still very reserved. So I'll get him. I'll get him in there.
I found with John, I just had to get
to buy it for
him in it. Yeah. Like get him in it. And then he wasn't even 100% sold on it then.
Yeah.
Because the price, it's a little pricey
Fair.
compared to
What
other.
you would-
Yeah. But then wearing it a few times, he was just shocked.
Yeah.
At how well it wore. And if it says it's water resistant, it is. If it says it's, So, and of course they're good on the environment and they're so it's really
Definitely.
good. Anyway, some great Canadian stores, guys. So and we're not promoting you to get out there and shop, but
but if you want to, some good options.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today we're welcoming back Scott Williams of Spectrum Waterloo Region, which affirms and supports the well-being of 2SLGBTQ plus people in our community. It's in the area of social wellness, and I asked to speak with Scott about allyship, how straight people can be allies to the community. So welcome back, Scott.
Thanks very much for having me.
We interviewed Scott on episodes 3 and 4 regarding terminology, and you'll recall that Scott holds a BA in English Language and Literature from Wilfrid Laurier University and a diploma in film production from Vancouver Film School. He completed certificates in Diversity and Inclusion Fundamentals and Anti-Racism with the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. And prior to Spectrum, Scott was Communications and Development Coordinator at KW Counseling, where he was part of the OK to Be Me team. He's volunteered as a member of the Kitchener Mayor's Task Force on Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, the Children and Youth Planning Table Communications Advisory Committee, the Mental Wellness Network of Waterloo Region, and on Breaking the Silence Working Group of the Rainbow Community Council. Now, Scott, I recently participated in anti-racism training through my work, and something surprised me about being an ally in that context, which made me want to ask you back to talk about being a straight ally. I'm hoping to work through some slides that I saw. They were created by CCDI Consulting, and to get your thoughts on how I, as a straight person, can be an ally to the rainbow community. So just before I start into the slides, I'm just wondering if you have any general thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think since we've spoken last, I have continued my personal EDI journey, and so has Spectrum as an organization. We're recording this during Black History Month, and Spectrum is working right now with the Kojo Institute. We're doing 2 courses with them, one on the foundations of equity and one on anti-Black racism. And I highly recommend them. They've been great. Some folks in Waterloo Region might have had the opportunity to work with Kike Ojo-Thompson in 2019 when she came to work with Wellbeing Waterloo Region. She did some sessions, and these are a great follow-up to those.
Okay. So then jumping into the slides, it started by a slide where they talked about a range of 5 different states. And I'm going to read them out, and then I want to talk about a couple quick ones. Exclusion, tolerance, acceptance, inclusion, and anti-racism. And what surprised me was that I felt like I had an anti-racism frame of mind, but I introspected and I realized I was probably at the inclusion stage. And just to read out the difference between those last 2, which are on the kind of far side of the spectrum that we're working towards, inclusion was noted as having the thought, you belong with us and we respect and honor you. And I think that's probably where I was at. But anti-racism talks about, let's work with you and break down systems of oppression. So I was taken a bit aback, and I'd appreciate your thoughts on that distinction.
Yeah, I think an axiom that I have come to love is diversity is a fact and inclusion is an act. So when we do our rainbow diversity training workshops, we like to encourage people to think about allyship as a verb, it's an action, and it's work that's done on an ongoing basis. And so if inclusion is action, then anti-racism has to take that a step further. And sometimes we talk about this in terms of working not just to be an ally, but working to be an accomplice. So if you're an ally, you're allied to a cause, which is really great. But an accomplice is out there in the trenches fighting alongside marginalized groups like Black, Indigenous, and racialized people, or 2SLGBTQ plus folks.
That's really interesting. And I like the way they put that it's an act, because it's something that's easy to understand. It's something easy to gravitate towards. Also that concept of accomplice. And it does tie into the second slide that caught me off guard, which distinguished between being not racist and being anti-racist, which I didn't appreciate before. I thought they were the same thing. So the not racist slide talks about things like acknowledging racism, but you're passive and it's more on the individual level. You're noticing it more on, for example, things that happen to friends that you know on individual level, whereas anti-racist speaks of recognizing privilege on the systemic level and taking action to dismantle systems of racial injustice. So that's another thing, I guess, a lot of us who, even if we want to be a straight ally, maybe we haven't turned our mind to how systemic things are.
Yeah, I agree with that. Privilege, is simply when people experience an actual or perceived advantage because of some trait that we have. It's usually something arbitrary that no one has control over, but it does lead them to having to work less hard to achieve the same outcomes as other disadvantaged groups. And I think when we're thinking about systemic racism or other systemic barriers, what equity-seeking groups are asking the majority to do is just be aware of the privilege that they might have and actually spend time reflecting on that to understand why others might be having a different experience. There's a great book called 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act by Bob Joseph. And it's a tiny little volume, but it does a great job of helping settlers understand how the Indian Act has had an impact on systems that govern everyday life. And it's content that has always been available, but it's packaged here in a really easy to digest way. And I think reading something like that is a good way for people to take the time to actually think about these issues.
It did strike me too. One of the things that happened during that training I did is they would have a series of phrases for discussion points. And, we knew that there was something in the phrase that was probably wrong. And there were quite a few there was at least 2 or 3 where I was thinking to myself, I don't even know what's wrong with that phrase. And one of them, for example, was somebody sitting in a boardroom at a company and someone says something like, we all have a chance to excel and do our best here. And I thought, well, don't we? And this point was made to me and it made a lot of sense. And so, for example, I've seen a social media post. It's a simple one that you can picture it, where one person starts at the bottom of an extremely long stairway and another person standing at the bottom of a much shorter stairway to the same place. And the person on the top is just saying, I don't know what the problem is here, right? So now I'm starting to get that the privilege is that we don't have to kind of work as hard or go through as many hoops or go up as many stairs to get to the same place. Now, just as a bit of an aside here, I've actually been struggling lately watching what's going on in the United States over the last year or so. It started with the Supreme Court decision dealing with abortion. We won't get into all that. But now I'm seeing with all these culture wars, lots of attacks now on the trans community and on drag shows and that kind of stuff. How are people in your community in Canada addressing and handling those kind of to me, they're tragic turns of events that are going backwards in history?
I agree. Tragic is the word. It's extremely disheartening. And especially for young 2SLGBTQ folks to be hearing constantly this negative talk about their identities, their right to exist even, it's extremely harmful. You internalize a lot of that stuff and it can lead to various mental health challenges and even suicidal ideation. I think the more progress we make, the more backlash there is. And we have to remain vigilant because we have seen how easy it is for things to slide back and for rights to be taken away. So it's something that we are watching very carefully and with a lot of sadness.
I think that's the feeling I have too, sadness and kind of shock. Like, how can we always be going back in history? But I think you're right. The reason I raised that point was because it did at the same time I was going through this training, I was seeing this happening in the States. And so I do have a much better sense now that I can't just sit back and hope for the best and wish things didn't happen, that somehow I have to try and find ways to help break down the system of oppression, as opposed to just saying, hey, everyone, you're welcome, and I don't have any biases one way or the other. And in that context, I'm looking at a third slide. It's kind of a directive to someone like me who gets called out at times. What happens if I get called out on something like privilege? And so it has this acronym CLAIM, and C for center yourself, L for listen, A for acknowledge or apologize, I for inquire, and M to move forward. And I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that. Like, do you at times, do people in your community at times call someone like me out and ask for input?
Yeah, or each other. We're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think often when we are called out on something, the first reaction is to become sort of defensive and say something like, oh, I didn't mean it like that, or that wasn't my intention at all. The classic example of this might be like a white woman crying when she's been called out for something racist. And those kinds of reactions put the emphasis on the wrong person in the interaction. The attention is being refocused on how the person who has done something offensive is feeling, rather than on the harm that may have been done to the other person. And the same is true as if we accidentally misgender someone or accidentally use a trans person's dead name. Making your apology into a big scene is both really embarrassing for the trans person who's been misgendered, and it also puts them in the position of having to comfort the person who has just made the mistake. So instead, it's usually better to just, say fairly quickly, oh, I'm sorry, I meant she, and move on. It's like you step on someone's toe and you just say sorry and move on, rather than making a big scene about it.
I like that a lot. I like the move on point. I should tell you too, one of the things I liked a lot about our last interviews way back, I was asking a bunch of questions that you probably thought I should have known the answer to. And you were very polite. You were very, comfortable talking and just saying, okay, John, well, here's the answer and let's just move forward. It wasn't about why I didn't know that. It was just about how to get me the information I needed and move forward, which I thought was great. And I like that concept here too.
I think we can't assume that people know everything. I am learning all the time around language with respect to 2SLGBTQ plus people or different identities. These things are evolving over time. So we can't expect that everyone is going to know everything. And so I'm totally open always to people asking me questions. And if I can help them.
Well, that made a big difference to me, because I just thought there might have been a different reaction, but I really appreciated the way that you handled those questions and helped me understand things better, which has had a big impact on me in the last year since we spoke. We come to the fourth slide, and I really do think this is a nice kind of concise way to talk about some of the things that people can do to be an ally, whether it's in racism or it's in the LGBTQ community. And so it talks about capacity building, and there's different ways to do it. So I'm just going to read through them, and then I'm going to come back to chat with you about it. So one is challenge, to challenge derogatory comments and behavior by colleagues. Another is participate in things like diversity and inclusion initiatives. Another is to educate myself on things like racism and what we're talking about, and barriers faced by racialized Canadians. L for listening to experiences of racialized Canadians. My sense is that's a good starting point for me to be an ally, and to then figure out a way where maybe I can help actively do that act to help break down barriers.
Yeah, I like the language of capacity building. And I think I agree, educating oneself is the first sort of key step. Other things that people can do to be allies to 2SLGBTQ plus people, you can patronize businesses that are owned by queer folks, and you can not patronize businesses that are not affirming to queer folks. A big one that we recently lived through here is voting. We had the municipal elections. You can ask rainbow people who they're voting for in an election and why they are voting for that person. If you call yourself an ally, but then you vote for a candidate or a party that would take away the rights of 2SLGBTQ plus people if they could, that's not allyship. So you need to be considering those kinds of things. You can seek out the voices of queer people. If you spend time on social media, then make an effort to follow queer folks and pay attention to the issues that they're talking about. And then you can use your own platform to amplify their voices. Another thing is, if you're in a room, any room, a meeting or whatever, you can think about who is not at the table. Is there a 2SLGBTQ plus person there, a Black person, an Indigenous person? If they're not present, then you can make an effort to hold space for them. Take a moment and say, if Scott were here, what would he think about this issue? And don't then speak for a marginalized group, but be aware of who's not present, and then maybe seek out feedback or opinions that would help to inform decision-making later.
Well, that was a really great list, Scott. I really appreciate the fact that it was very factual too, like something practical that people can actually do and think about. You did mention that one good idea would be to follow social media, and I follow you and OK to be me. What are the Spectrum social media places that we can follow? What are the addresses?
On Twitter, we are _Spectrum. And on Instagram, I believe we're Spectrum Waterloo. And on Facebook, Spectrum Waterloo. I think in addition, if we go back to the idea of education, we can talk about something that Spectrum has been doing almost since the beginning. We have a program called Rainbow Diversity Training. We have a series of different workshops on 2SLGBTQ plus cultural competency that we can offer to businesses and organizations or individuals in the community. And they've been very effective. People are finding them very helpful in understanding that terminology, the key concepts, and we go into more complex topics like the history of 2SLGBTQ plus people in Canada, patriarchy, colonialism, these kinds of things.
I really do believe that everything starts with education and understanding. And so that's an awesome service that you guys provide. So here we are at the end of the interview. And as you know from your prior appearance, we ask every guest the same question, where there's many categories of wellness and we don't always have time to foster wellness in all areas. So we ask, can you think of any area of wellness that you're lacking at this time? And if so, can you think of even one thing that you can do to foster wellness in that area?
Yeah, the area that I am working on is a work-life balance. I have been in my role as executive director at Spectrum now for just over a year, so entering the second year, and learning about what my limits are in terms of the amount of work I can do safely, and remembering to keep my personal time as sort of sacred. So I'm learning to do that. I would say I'm not doing it well right now, and I'm working to get better at it.
Well, in that context, again, I so much appreciate you giving us a bit of time to help explore this concept. And as I mentioned off tape too, I've had this kind of discussion with lots of people who are guests on the show who are passionate about helping, whether it's the environment or a particular group of people. And many of them say the same thing. Many people who are passionately trying to help end up not giving themselves enough time and always are on the go. So I hope you find a way to get that balance, because I think not only will it help you and your well-being, but it'll help you do your job even better.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. I've been running into this thing lately where, since I play every day, for all different kinds of reasons and different folks and different contexts, it's really easy to lose sight of the joy that music brings or can bring, and it's really easy to think of it as a job and nothing more. I've been running into that a lot this past week, a week and a half really, and while things are good, like I'm doing well with the teaching gig, the recording stuff is going okay, stuff is moving forward, that indie film is mostly on schedule, was the update I got today. Like, stuff is happening, finally. But I keep running into this hurdle, just losing steam on why I play and the want to play, like the desire instead of the obligation, and wrestling with that. So this week, I picked up my electric guitar and just dove into the stuff that, the music I grew up on, fun music. A lot of pop punk lately, which is really fun. It's right in the nostalgia for me and people my age. Lots of Sum 41, some Blink-182 this week. A little Good Charlotte in the mix, some My Chemical Romance. It's been pretty sweet. been having a blast. But what's cool about it for me is that not only is it sort of rekindling that joy and that the fun part of music, but because it's music that I grew up listening to, I kind of know it in my head. What's neat for me, though, is that at the time I heard all those songs, when I was younger, I had no idea how to play guitar. I had never picked up a guitar. I didn't know what to do. So being able to actually play a guitar now, and not only kind of play it, but be proficient, and then jump into these songs, which are arguably fairly simple songs to play, it's been a pretty sweet week for that. And it has worked. It has re-sparked and rekindled a joy that had been missing for a little while. So I guess that's the news. Nothing major, but an important aspect nonetheless. They say if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And sometimes that isn't quite true. But this week, I'm trying to focus more on remembering why I love doing what I do and enjoying it. That's all I've got for you. Thanks very much for listening. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We love our listeners and thanks for joining us. Please help spread the word about Let's Be Well Together podcast. Follow us and rate us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram at lets.be.well.together and let your friends know about us.
Move that body like we're meant to do. So it's John and Sheila here for Move That Body, and we are going to talk about music that you listen to when you're working out, or podcasts, or whatever you prefer. So John, what's your preference?
The main thing is I learned that it really makes a big difference if I have nice headphones. I should talk about that for a minute too, like the nice headphones. So having nice headphones and having something to listen to, because especially for a long distance runner, some people, they love just being out by themselves and daydreaming. That's not me. I really need something to keep myself distracted or, enjoying. I
agree. I really need something to distract me as well. So something.
Yeah. And the same at the gym. I think you're talking more at the gym.
I am. Yeah.
But now for me too, when I go to the gym now, not when I'm doing weights, but if I'm doing aerobic exercise and machine, then I like to listen to music. But doing weights, for some reason, I don't like to have anything on. I don't know why.
Okay. So you talk about your headphone experience and I'll talk about mine.
So when I first started getting into long distance running, weirdly, one of the hardest things in terms of equipment was getting the right headphones. Because if you'd be on a run, and so initially I just found some headphones that stick in your ear, the earbud type things. And I noticed that I was forever like adjusting, and at the time too, there was more wired than wireless.
Right.
Because I'm old. And so I was forever like adjusting the wires, or something would tug, or I'd try. And so then I had to try and find ways to pin it to
because I remember you safety pinning.
Right. And so I, for the longest time, it took a long time just to get
ready
headphones. And then I found the ones that flip over your ear. So there's like a little thing that goes over top of your ear, then it still goes more like an earbud. That helped. It still had a wire, which would jingle and jangle. And then eventually I got onto the headphones that are wireless. But they were a pain because for a long time, they're making great strides in terms of improvements. But for a long time, every time I got a set of wireless headphones, they wouldn't last very long because you had to recharge them. In that little spot, if you're running outside, it could get wet, it could get sweaty, even if you try and avoid it. And for whatever reason, it wouldn't be too long until it wouldn't recharge anymore.
Right.
So you're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
So my favorite headphones right now are called Aftershocks. Open run, and they're interesting too because they don't actually go in your ear. They go they work on bone technology. This isn't an ad, by the way. I'm just telling you after lots of exploration what my favorite is. And they're amazing.
They are very good.
The most recent version has a way to recharge it that doesn't require I'm not going to really explain it, but it works more on a magnet than something that has to stick in. And so that whole issue seems to be resolved about the water getting in.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've had them for a long time, so hopefully. But I love listening to music when I'm running. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll listen to podcasts. So obviously I always talk about Marathon Talk. I've had countless long runs listening to Marathon Talk and so enjoyable.
Yeah.
But at the end of a long run, what I tend to do is for the last 4 kilometers, I put on music. There's 2 or 3 music mixes that I like that kind of get me through the end of a hard run. And it just distracts me enough, keeps me busy enough that I don't think about the difficulty, the pain. I don't want to say the pain, but
or exhaustion.
So that's a really great combo for me. Podcast for a long time, music to finish things off.
See, for music, I find it very hard to not be on the rhythm.
Okay.
So I need to make sure that if I'm listening to music, that it's got the right rhythm. So I'm going fast enough or slow enough, because I can't not move to the rhythm. It's impossible.
Just to interrupt you for a sec, because I talk too much already. But yeah, like for a long time, I actually had these really funny mixes where I have 180 beats per minute, 190 beats per minute. I found all this wacky music that I would make these. But now I don't really need that. But
you can listen to the music and you've got your pace.
What do you like?
Well, I really like podcasts. I listen to podcasts the whole time, and Audible. I read books.
Right. Like today you said you were listening to a book. Yeah,
and it finished today. So that's what I like to listen to, and it completely distracts me. I have no concept of time when I'm reading or when I'm listening to books or podcasts, because they're not, music is 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long, and it's got a beat. So I feel like I'm still more aware of the time, where podcasts and Audible, I'm not. So I really do enjoy that. But for headphones, I really like to have my ears covered. Now, for the longest time, I did the same as you. I had them in my ears, and I just had those simple ones. And I actually have had a cord my whole exercise life. And it was my birthday, so John got me some headphones. And it's not that I need expensive ones. I just really like to have my ears covered, because I'm listening to people talking, not music. So I do need to hear every single word they're saying. And it irritates me when I hear other voices. And as we've talked about before, you hear people talking when you're at the gym. And when I have my ears completely covered, I can't hear that. Or the music that's playing at the gym. There's music playing and it's often quite loud. I don't hear that as well. So I really like to have my whole ears covered and kind of be in the zone when I'm working out.
Yeah, we could probably turn this into a flip side of that whole headphone thing, because I ended up thinking, oh, well, these are the most amazing Open Runner, the most amazing headphones you could dream of. And it took me years to find them. And so I bought a pair for Sheila for her birthday, and she's like, I don't like these. I'm like, oh no, because they don't cover her ears. And we ended up having to buy something else at one of these kind of bargain stores. And we found a pair that covers her ears for $29.95.
Perfect. I was like,
so far she loves them.
I love them.
But I still think someday you'll fall in love with the other ones, but that will be time to tell.
Yeah, because it is hard. Because if someone does want to talk to me, I have to stop my podcast, take them off my ears, and then go, okay, hi, I can't hear you. Whereas yours, you can completely have a conversation. Well, obviously turn off your music, but you can have a conversation, hear them. So that's really nice.
The thing for me that I really like is I'm out on the road and I have them on so I can still hear a little bit, and I need them for the traffic. So I want to hear a car coming up to me. I want to hear noises.
Yes.
I want to hear if someone's biking and I'm in their way. So that really helps. But I know we're running a bit late, but quick question. When you do weights, do you still listen to your books?
Oh, yes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah, for sure I do. It's great.
There's a thought. Popped up while running. There's a lot of chicken and egg questions in the world. What comes first? Another one for me is that I feel like I'm a really lucky person. Other people say that about me too. Maybe because that's something I exude, something I talk about. But it just seems to me that so many great things happen. Like something falls into place just at the right time. I'm somewhere right when I need to be for something good to happen. Maybe I win a prize, a door prize or something like that. And I say, I'm really lucky. But then I wonder if I am lucky and these things happen, or if I'm looking for good things to happen to prove my theory, even though good and bad things are happening all the time. And I think it's more the latter. I think just as many bad things happen to me as good things. But for whatever reason, because I have that attitude that, hey, I'm a lucky person, that I tend to see the good things that happen to prove my theory, and that's what I remember. And that's another example, too, of how your outlook can change your experiences. So you can have the same experiences, and it can either feel good or bad, depending on your outlook. So I've talked too much about London and the London Marathon. And guess what? I'm going to keep doing that because it was such a great lesson for me, because for all the reasons I've talked about on prior shows, I headed into that day initially with a negative outlook, thinking, I'm overweight. I haven't trained very well. It's going to be my slowest marathon. I don't know what's going to happen out there. I'm sure I can finish, but I might end up having to walk, but I'll do it. And just for people who hadn't heard some of these prior shows, I entered a lottery to get into the London Marathon and got my ticket pulled, which was really unexpected odds, but I had decided to put my name in every year thinking it would take 5 or 10 years to get picked, but I got picked early. So I wasn't really ready for it. Anyway, skip forward again. I did, though, before I left that day, try and put myself in a good frame of mind. Try and say, let's let today happen. Hopefully some good things will happen. And small example, I decided to high five any kid who put their hand out. That would be fun. I had my name on my jersey, hoping that people would say, hey, John, and they did. And that was fun. So I had an open mind, and when I went out, and I was going to try and look for the good things, but it never occurred to me that how many good things would happen. So many did. And I ended up having an amazing experience. And even though it was my slowest marathon, I think in retrospect, it's my favorite. Just so many amazing things happened, and it all had to do again with changing the frame of mind. And again, it just kind of reinforces that thought to me that so much depends on our outlook in terms of our experiences. The same experience can be good or bad, depending on our outlook, not so much the experience. It's me.
Yeah. So let me say, flip side of the coin.
I need you to help me figure something out where I have no context for you.
Okay, no problem.
So I'm on the treadmill looking, and there's all these TV screens we can look at. Mm-hmm. And one of them has one of those channels where, you get the updates on weather and news and traffic and all that stuff. And they always have this, whatever the thing is at the bottom that scrolls across. So I'm looking up and it says, younger generation, I'm not going after you, okay? I'm not going after you. But
okay.
Maybe I am. I don't know.
Okay.
But here's what it says. It says, study shows most young adults are tired of being adults.
Most young adults, they haven't even been adults very long.
No, most young adults are tired of being adults. I'm like, what?
Okay, so I can imagine, I feel like this all the time, actually. Sometimes I find adults boring compared to like when I'm talking to teenagers or talking to young kids. Like their imagination, they're so creative, and they're not stuck in a hole. And I find adults, go to work, come home, make dinner, do the laundry, whatever your responsibilities are. And I can imagine as a teenager, when I was a teenager, I so wanted to be an adult. I wanted to be an adult. I wanted to have the respect that adults have and have the freedom. I thought that they would have so much more freedom. But actually, as an adult, you have so much more responsibility, especially financial responsibility. So you get the car, you get the house, you get the kids, and then all of a sudden you're...
Okay, but doesn't it kind of suggest that there's an option? Oh, you know what? I really wish I didn't have to do this adult thing. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? You exist. You're in the planet. You're on a certain spot. You have needs and responsibilities, and you need to get stuff done. Like, what are you trying to say? That boo-hoo, life is hard?
Maybe that's what they're saying. Yeah. Boo-hoo, life is hard. Maybe they're saying, I don't want to do this anymore. And they don't want to have to live up to life's expectations, and that they don't want a mortgage and a house and responsibility. They want to go and travel and quit their job and, do this or do that. Maybe that's what they're saying.
And that I get. But, at the end of the day, maybe, our whole show is about trying to find balance and try and get positive and try and find a way through things. So maybe that's what it's saying is that, if I don't take the approach where I'm trying to say, what the heck, guys, if I look more into it and try and think what's actually going on, maybe it is really hard to find balance. Maybe it really is hard to find the upsides on things these days, especially after COVID and working at home, and you can't afford a house, and things are a lot more challenging in social media and everything else.
Yes. And I think that they want things immediately. Younger people, like want it now.
And sometimes I think too, unfortunately, because of all the challenges these days, they have a harder time imagining it. So in our generation, we are kind of lucky. So I actually think we lived through one of the best periods in history that I'm aware of. It's not going that well anymore. But when we grew up, we kind of knew that, you know, if you just buckle down and you just keep moving forward and you find a job and you work and you put the hours in, you will eventually get stuff. You will be able to afford a house. You will. And these days, you know, sometimes, especially after the recent craziness with the house prices, which may or may not be starting to correct now, I would think about the next generations. I don't know if they're going to be able to afford a house.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if they do everything right, even if they work really hard.
And if they do, they're going to have to work really hard to keep it.
So maybe it's suggesting that there's not as much hope, and without the hope,
it's harder.
I'm tired of this. Yeah. But it just kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, I don't really know what that means.
Do you have a choice to go back to adolescence? I don't know. I remember when we lived in Montreal, I'd come home and wake up and my lunch was ready or my breakfast. My mom made breakfast. She did my laundry and all this stuff. And I thought, oh, I miss this.
That's true.
You miss that. But yeah, I don't think you have a choice. You have to grow up.
So I guess maybe what it was saying is they just like to move back home and chill out. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, you know, that kind of sounds attractive to me too.
I know, me too.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way. It's sign-off time, and I'm here with Sheila and Elise.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't really have anything to say today. It was one of those weeks where I'm not going to get into the minutia, but between work and all of the different things I was doing, it was just basically get up, do stuff all day, go to sleep, get up, do stuff all day, go to sleep. So I got really nothing for sign off this week. It was just a week of the grind, let's say.
Okay.
A week of the grind. How about you, Elise?
Well, it's March break this week, so that's
nice.
pretty exciting for me. So that means I have the week off of work. So Stephen and I are hoping to do a lot of kind of staycation activities. I have a spa visit planned and seeing some friends and maybe just enjoying some time at home reading. So I'm pretty excited for that because last week I was feeling pretty burnt out. So I think I needed it.
Good.
How about you, Sheila?
The time change has kind of killed me, at least today anyway. So that I'm finding a little rough.
We're recording this the day after the time change.
Yeah, the day after the day
We're doing this on Monday.
Yeah. And
the time change was like 2 a.m. on Sunday.
So Sunday it was fine because Sundays are Sundays. But Monday, I couldn't sleep very well last night. And so waking up and then it just seemed like it was a really long day. So that's a bit of a drag. Hopefully that'll get better. But I did get my dress for the wedding.
Oh, right.
I'm really excited about that. Yes, I went shopping last weekend with my mom and my sister, and we had a lovely time in Erin. It's a very small town. And we went into this tea house that's called Maddie Hatter. And it was all like the Mad Hatter design and teacups and clocks and hats. And it was a really cool place. So I really enjoyed that. And also we have the shower coming up this weekend. So I have a lot of wedding things coming up and going on and planning all that. And I'm still working this week.
And for anyone who listened a couple episodes ago, when Sheila showed me the dress that she bought, I was like, wow, you're beautiful. That's beautiful.
You mean
I love it.
This time when I showed you this dress.
Exactly.
Yes, he was very...
I learned my lesson.
That's the right answer.
Yes, exactly. So that's it. That's all that's going on. We got the week to do our thing.
Yep. I had like the no info sign off and you guys had lots going on. And Elise, have an amazing break in March break.
Thank you.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.